Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dong Kim. I'm the Director of Application Engineering at NewWave. We are in Anchorage, Maryland. It's about 20 minutes south of Baltimore and then maybe 30 minutes north of Washington, D.C. So we're from East Coast. Just by raising your hand, how many of you are from East Coast here? Wow. What about West Coast? What about like in between, you don't really call it East Coast or West Coast, somewhere in between? Midwest? Nice. Welcome. I really appreciate you guys being here. I know that there are other interesting sessions going on, but I think we are all here because we know that data governance is really important within federal healthcare space. Yeah, these are our customers. We mainly work with CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and we also have presence in Department of Health and Human Services. We do a little bit of work with NOAA, FEMA, and CDC as well. So about NewWave, we're a mid-sized company. We have about 350 people now. This slide is a little bit outdated, but we have grown a lot. I mean, I've been at NewWave for about 2.5 years now, but we have about 100% growth between when I joined and now. So we're going to be going over 400 sometime very soon. We have 11 prime contracts at CMS. We support over 7 CMS centers, and I'm really proud to say that we are a CMMI level 4 company in both development and services. I know that not many companies have that. We are a Databricks Gold Level partner. We do a lot of work with Microsoft. As a matter of fact, we share building with each other. We share same bathroom and things like that. We do work with AWS. We are advanced consulting partner of theirs. So this is just capturing some of our partners that we work with. We work closely with Looker. We will go over that a little bit during the presentation. Snowflake is awesome. We do a lot of work with Microsoft, and there are other companies that you can see that we work with. So Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, it's the largest healthcare payer in the country with about $800 billion budget. And NewWave has been its trusted innovation partner for the last 15 years. As I mentioned earlier, we have 11 prime contracts with CMS, including Chronic Condition Warehouse, which is one of the largest data repository of healthcare in the United States. And we have recently been awarded a large contract to deliver innovative development and also operational services. So this talk is part of the solution that we're delivering for that project. So CMS is a very unique customer. They oversee many federal healthcare programs, including health information technology. In addition to Medicare, which is the federal healthcare insurance program for elderly, and Medicaid, which is the federal needs-based program that helps with people with medical costs. CMS also oversees children's health program as well as HIPAA. You guys probably know what HIPAA is, right? And CMS is unique in a way that it's the federal government agency where healthcare payment, healthcare policies, and healthcare IT converges. And these are some of the data challenges for which NewWave is providing innovative solution for our customer. So CMS ingests, stores, and analyzes large amount of data. Currently, CMS data is integrated from administrative, transactional, and medical records of beneficiaries. CMS hosts about 57 million Medicare beneficiary and about 72 million Medicaid beneficiaries. So 2 billion data points that's on the slide, it's just for Medicare. So if you consider Medicaid, the number is much higher. So they have a big data problem. Privacy and providing data agility, it's kind of dichotomy always. You want to have the data protected, but at the same time you don't want to restrict the data to end users who may be needing the data to come up with policies for research purposes and things like that. So this talk will be mainly about how we can provide solution for that problem. CMS, due to the complexity in the logistics and payment services provided, they have about 30,000 tables, with some of the tables having billions of rows and hundreds of columns. So providing the centralized view of the data so that policymakers and researchers, they can make a data-driven decision, and policy formulation is crucial. So our vision is to provide simple and reliable tech knowledge and data experience. Not many people think of data experience, but we want to provide a central-wide shared data service so that it doesn't just meet the current data needs of CMS, but it's future-proof. We don't want to be building just one-off solution. We want our solution to provide the needs that our customer is currently facing, but be able to evolve into that something much greater. And we want to be able to provide reliable and secure 360 view of consistent data definition and metadata management. That's part of our robust data governance. And we want to be leveraging cloud for its scalability and flexibility. So this is a quote by Albert Einstein. The definition of genius is taking the complex and making it simple. And I think it just talks about being human-centered focus, right? Providing the data experience, that's not complicated, that anybody can understand using the tool of the choice. Because as engineers, we tend to focus solely on engineering problem and not really think about the problem that we're trying to solve. So we got to be asking, who am I building this for? And we need to understand that we cannot solve every problem, right? We got to start somewhere. We got to be able to provide solution for the customers. So this is our solution from the bird's eye view. We use Azure Data Lake for storing files as storage mechanism, and we use Databricks for heavyweight data transformation, which involves complex calculation requiring a scalable distributed processing capability. And we also do advanced analytics such as machine learning and deep learning. Looker is used for data modeling and lightweight data transformation. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And Snowflake, as you know, is the cloud-native analytical data warehouse. It has great capability to share data. And Azure Blob Storage is used for data upload onto Snowflake. And this is the slide that I want to focus on. So we want to be breaking away from traditional ETL as much as possible, dependency on ETL, because ETL can be expensive and time-consuming. It's expensive to maintain because the requirements change, and because the requirements change, the data needs change. That means you need to go back and write your ETL script again. And you don't really know what data is useful or what is not useful, right? So the data that used to be not useful can be useful because of the change in the requirements. And you're not really getting fresh data. So what we proposed, and what we implemented at CMS is data as a service, right? Creating an environment where data analysts, data SMEs, and business users can collaborate together. So not really going through heavy ETL translation, but having access to the raw data and then being able to do the transformation on the fly. And for that purpose, we're leveraging Dremio, which enables us to ingest data from the different data sources, including Data Lake, Oracle database, Teradata, NoSQL such as MongoDB. It uses Apache Arrow under the cover, which is the in-memory columnar storage format to speed up the querying process. And one thing that I'm really excited about is the concept of virtual data set, which is similar to the views in traditional relational database. And what you can do is you can layer access control on top of virtual data set so that after you have done some transformation or masking of the data, you're only allowing that virtual data set with masked data to be given to people with less privileges. It also has data catalog, data lineage, and data curation capability. And when you connect data to Dremio, you don't really have to define schema. So this is where agility comes from. Unlike other tools, where you have to define schema first and then be able to ingest the data, you can just connect the data to, for example, a CSV file in Azure Data Lake, and then Dremio just picks it up, and then there you go. You have the data available to you. And on top of that, you have a familiar SQL engine so that you can leverage NC SQL to query data and then do any type of transformation. And this is not a new concept. This is based on Google's Dremio white paper. And there is another open source project that does similar. It's cousin to Dremio. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with Apache Drill. So if you have time, I'll check it out. So Dremio's virtual data set, it's the immutable physical data. So it's built on top of immutable physical data set. Underlying data set, physical data set doesn't change. You are just building a transformation on top of the physical data. And then you can leverage SQL to do transformation and the query. You can also chain virtual data sets so that you can have a basic transformation and on top of that build more complex transformation. Share that virtual data set with one group, build another data set, and then share that with different groups. It also provides a data lineage so that you have the historical information of where the data came from. And this is how you define a virtual data set. As you can see, this is just SQL. And I generated patient data using Cynthia. So even if you see like a social security number here, don't be alarmed. It's not real data. If there's anybody who's matching that information, it's pure act of God. It's not intentional. So just wanted to make that clear. As you can see, I'm joining data that's found in CSV with data in JSON, right, using a pure SQL. Why would somebody do that? Just because I can, and it's kind of fun. But it's like defining a view, right? So you are essentially taking data that's in CSV file, joining that with data found in JSON. So simplicity comes from the fact that everybody here knows SQL, right? Average data analysts, they know SQL. They don't have to learn new tool. They are familiar. And then, Dremio has great UI so that you can do the drop down to pull in different functions and do the data curation and things like that. So SQL is sexy again. I find this not just in Dremio, but I think SQL is coming back. Yeah, so this is the different view. And what about privacy? So I think you guys were these functions are sort of familiar to you, query user and its member, right? T-SQL from SQL Server, they have similar functions. And even MySQL, they have functions like that. So you can leverage its member to ensure that certain users belong to a certain group before you build that virtual data set, so that the users are only gaining access to the data that that they should have access to. So here, in this example, I'm just pulling out patients who are in Boston area, so that I can do that. I can give that to data analysts who are working in the Boston population, for example. And you can do a similar thing for column level masking. Many times people create different physical data because they do heavy ETL type of job to mask out social security number, for example, first name, last name, or any type of PII or PHI. But if you can leverage something like this, then you don't really have to create a different physical data sets, which can lead to a data proliferation. So it makes management of data really easy by using this approach. This is creating virtual data set. And as I mentioned, Dremio has data catalog capability so that you can search for data. You can create wiki page so that you can discuss, you can have the collaborative discussion about the quality of the data, what's missing, and things like that. You can also tag data to be useful for searching capability. And data lineage, I don't know whether you can see this well, but on the left-hand side, you see the original data source, right? That's coming from Azure Data Lake. I'm using two different Azure Data Lake accounts. One of the account contains a CSV file that we just saw, and then the other account contains JSON. I am pulling them in and creating them virtual data set on top of those. That's the second column. And then I'm joining the data together, creating another virtual data set, which is the one that you see in the middle. And out of that, I created a Boston data set for Boston data analysts. And then I created a masked data set for masking away sensitive information. So you can see the whole data lineage in one screen. So we have this data governance layer that we have built. But what about in terms of data modeling? So our choice of data modeling is Looker. So Looker runs on top of Dremio to pull the data. It's a BI and analytics tool, but it has a unique capability called LookML. So LookML is a high-level language that's made to fully utilize SQL. So what it does is that, I don't know whether you can see the code, but it's a way to define the measures and dimensions, and it'll translate into different SQL dialects. For example, Snowflake may have different dialect than MySQL and things like that. So it makes SQL manageable, and you are able to create very complex SQL statement utilizing LookML. And once you have created a model, you can hand that over to business users who can have the view, Explorer view. They can click around through different visualization and filtering. And once the data analysts and business users have agreed on certain data model, what they can do is they can LookML transpires into SQL, right? And then what you can do from that point on is to take the SQL and then create another virtual data set, or create a physical data set and then use that to upload onto Snowflake. And you can even do version control on top of LookML so that you know exactly, you can go back to different time in the history. So what about Apache Spark? So we can have access to Apache Spark utilizing Dremio's JDBC driver. This is, I created a small demo utilizing Databricks running in Microsoft Azure. How many of you do not use Databricks Secret yet? We love you guys. We don't judge, but it's best practice not to have any sensitive information in your notebook, right? So Databricks Secret is like Azure Key Vault, right? It stores sensitive information that's hidden away from regular users, but you can pull that information in your notebook utilizing DBUtils library. So that's what I'm doing at the top line. And then this is the way that you make connection to Dremio using JDBC driver. At the bottom option, non-partition, is so that you can have a parallelization of having access to the data to be a little bit more performant in terms of pulling in data. So I'm going to go into a small demo. Okay, so this is the virtual data set that Sorry, it's kind of hard to see from here. Okay. So I'm just showing you the virtual data set that I created from synthetic data. Cynthia patient is the name of the virtual data set. And this is just the data lineage screen that I showed you before. So what I'm going to do for the demo is I'm going to take the existing virtual data set that we have created from joining CSV and JSON files, and I'll bring data into Databricks using JDBC driver, and we will do a data transformation. We'll be masking out social security number field that we had. We'll pretend that we're doing heavy data transformation, such as calculating inpatient hospital utilization or things like that, right? And then after we have transformed the data, I'm going to write that out as a Parquet file format onto Azure Data Lake. And from that, we can pick it up from Dremio and then create another virtual data set, just to show you the agility and then the type of transformations that you can do. So this is my Azure Data Lake account. As you can see, there is no Parquet file. And all the data is stored as either JSON or CSV. This is my notebook. As you can see, I'm utilizing secrets to pull in username and password. Doing simple query to bring data from Cynthia patient dataset, virtual dataset. Social security number field is not masked yet, but we can fix that with a simple line. Now the social security number is masked. And now I'm going to write that out to Azure Data Lake as a Parquet file. Yeah, connecting to Azure Data Lake was taking a little bit of time. Should be done soon. Okay, now it's done. Okay, we're writing out the Parquet file now. We'll check to make sure that it's there. And from then on, we'll check in our Dremio to see whether the file is picked up as a physical data set. And there it is. So it's still a physical data set at this stage. We're going to be converting that into a virtual data set just by one click of a button. As you can see, social security number field is masked. And we have a new virtual data set from that point on. And you can do this kind of transformation and build on top of virtual data set as many times as you want. Like I said, Dremio is built on top of Apache Arrow, and it also has a concept called data reflection, which is like indexing within a traditional relational database. So we're taking incremental approach to meet our client's need. As I mentioned before, we want to tackle the problem that we can bring most value to our customer first. our customer, they have mostly structured and unstructured data. So that's the first problem that we want to solve. And then we will get into unstructured data, taking medical records that's in free text format, and then using that to support machine learning and deep learning in the future. We're taking human-centered design approach. We want to interact with our customer, find out what their needs are, and then change our process and tweak our design as we get their feedback. And we are, the tools that we're working on, Dremio, Looker, Snowflake, and even some of the services in Azure, they are very, very cutting edge. And as you know, within federal government space, they require certain services or tools to be FedRAMP if you are in the cloud, right? So we're waiting for some of the services to be available within FedRAMP environment. So we're working closely with our vendor partners. One exciting news about Dremio is that they are coming up with a native connector to Apache Spark. So that'll make querying against Dremio from Spark a lot faster in the future. We are hiring. So Azab is from our marketing team. Do you want to raise your hand? So if you are interested, please come talk to her. And if you can maybe use extra $1 million, please check out that URL that I have over there. CMS is hosting AI challenge. The grand prize is $1 million. And then runner-up, you can get just $250,000. So please check it out. Is there any question?
Thank you, Donghua. If anyone has any questions, please line up at one of the mics, and we have about 10 minutes for questions.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I have a question about user authentication. So as you know, some of the sensitive data are masked. But for example, if I'm the admin of a system, I would like to see those data. How would you control user access?
So it can be hooked up to either LDAP, right? And tools have, they can either integrate with something like Okta for user access and authorization.
Would that require integration with another tool? Is that what you're?
It'll be integrated into your directory service. Yeah, it can be integrated with your directory service so that you have a centralized place where you control access and privileges.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're creating virtual databases that the underlying data is, maybe it's JSON or CMS or something, do you pay any price in terms of the speed of queries?
Yeah, so that's where Apache Arrow comes into play. And also, like I explained to you, they have a concept of data reflection, which is patent pending. So it's like an index within your traditional relational database. So the data as a service layer, it's not going to be true production environment. It's the environment that we created so that data analysts and business users can collaborate with each other. So that's where the data modeling and data exploration takes place. You're not going to be using that to run production load. Okay.
Hi, thanks for the amazing presentation. One quick question. So I have seen that you are manipulating the data in a runtime as part of your data access layer, like specifically masking, right? So do you have any scenarios where you need to treat the data in the persistent layer?
Yeah, it all depends on business needs. But you mean taking that virtual data set and persisting into a persistent storage?
My question was the source data, say you're reading it and changing that data. You're masking that data, right? So that masking.
Yeah, sure. So that's what you can do. Just like we saw from the demo, we can pull that data into Apache Spark and then create a persistent data in Parquet format, right? And then upload that to Snowflake for more of a production-ready data analytics and BI workload.
Okay. Does Dremio provide any out-of-box solutions without running a job to do this masking?
Yeah,
the
so
back end?
the concept of Dremio is that you want to leave your physical data set immutable,
Okay.
right?
Got it.
And then you are doing data transformation on top of each other to create more virtual data set and providing more data governance.
Great. Thank you.
I was wondering if you could speak a little more to the unstructured data and how you, how you develop models out of that.
Yeah, so I mean, we haven't really worked that much with unstructured data yet. That's in the planning, especially. So part of the work that we're doing for CMS is to create a data lab, AI data challenge data lab, right? It's a sandbox environment. So it's something that we need to think through a little more. We don't really have a viable solution at this point, but it's something that we're actively working on right now.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it seems like Dremio can be used as a sort of pass-through to read data. Is it possible to also use it to write data to like a different
Yes.
location?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Dremio is meant for keeping the physical data set immutable. You can do data transformation, and then once you have created a virtual data set, you can utilize different tools that can extract the data out of Dremio and then be able to write into more permanent data storage. So that's one way you can do it.
But it's not possible to use Dremio as like a security guard for who can write to a particular directory?
Oh, I mean, it depends on how you set up your, for example, Azure Data Lake. So you can provision different permission to different user groups. And also within Dremio, there is a concept of workspace. And for each workspace, you can assign different users, giving them write access or read access. So let's say you have written out data to a particular workspace, then only people who have access and privilege to the workspace can see the virtual data set.
Cool. Thanks.